The following episode of Between the Studs contains spoilers for LEGO Masters Season 2, Episode 2. You have been warned. Justin here with Between the Studs, and we have LEGO Masters Season 2, Episode 2 review coming at ya. We have today, myself, of course, Chris, Angie, and who's that guy at the end?
Some
Random dude. No, it's Mark, one half of the Genius Erickson duo here today. And we are going to talk about our review, our thoughts and opinions on Episode 2.
Yep. Moving right along. It's Episode 2, baby.
In general, I'd like to start with Mark. What was your opinion on seeing it edited versus what you remember?
I think that this episode was actually better than the last episode as far as editing. You got to see quite a bit from a variety of teams, a little bit of the builds. I think the builds are still not as featured as I would like. I mean, it's a competition show, and it just happens to be themed around Lego.
Yeah.
So,
And there's 12 teams. So
there's still a lot of teams to be covered. I honestly like this one better. It felt better to me than the last one. And I think it's because there's a little less of Will Arnett having to introduce the entire show.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, we're already into the show. He doesn't have to start, like, we're going to have more graphics. It's like, they didn't worry about the graphics. They just went right to the fun stuff of the show.
And I imagine, you made a good point, as more and more teams get eliminated, we'll see more and more of the stories and the drama. Was there anything surprising to you seeing it?
One thing that I was surprised that wasn't as much in there that I thought they might have included was that several teams, including me and Steven, were actually having a really tough time in this episode. And the overall appearance was very positive and very happy, and it was just kind of like, oh no, things blew up. It didn't blow up the way we wanted or stuff like that. But no, several teams were literally like freaking out over their builds. And so it just for whatever reason, we were all tired, hungry. It was really getting real now because like somebody's got to be eliminated at this point, right? It's because last week there was a break, no one got eliminated. This time somebody's going home for sure.
And you were telling me that this was a later night too?
Yeah.
When they shot it?
Parts of this, the building session were filmed pretty late at night. We're talking like 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening. After a day of filming all sorts of different stuff for the episode, you're kind of tired and you're really stressed. And it's been already a full episode of filming. Now we're into the second episode. It's starting to feel really raw for people. And Steve and I were like getting literally angry with each other. We were trying not to like act out on camera. And then other teams had to take a little moment, like a 5-minute break, literally separate because they were both so mad at each other. Other teams were literally saying 4-letter words and they're like, yeah.
You saw a very little bit of that. You saw some people say, like, I'm getting frustrated and things like that. So you did see a tiny little bit about, but you're right. It's a family show. We got to keep it positive.
I'm actually glad for that because I was one of the teams getting stressed. So it's like that. I'm glad it wasn't all about the rage. It was more about, oh, they're having fun building.
Yeah.
What were you stressed about?
So Steven and I were given some pretty strong critiques halfway through that our build was basically all green. There wasn't enough color going on. There wasn't enough volume in the back.
Really?
Yeah, and so several other teams got pretty strong criticism. I think it's because they expected a lot from us going into the second episode. We built this really big thing. They wanted us to keep going with the big stuff. We were like thinking, should we start over? Should we do something else? But we're like, no, we really can't tear it apart. And so we were stressed about, we were like really thrown a curveball, as it were. And so we're like, we didn't really think about how a green watermelon on a green background doesn't really show up. So we ended up having to really push ourselves to improvise. That's why you see a lot of the little fruit people. Briefly, you can see them. And I mean, everyone got like all of the 20 seconds for their explosion and their final build. But so we really pushed ourselves to add a lot more color. We added a barn in the back in the last 40 minutes. Very stressed.
Well, this was a weird challenge, and I felt like, at least for the audience, I don't know what you guys were told, but it wasn't well explained. And I was confused till about the 15 or 20 minute mark. Like, wait, what's exploding? How does it work? You had some questions on that too, right?
Yeah, we really did wonder, how. So what is exploding? For one, all right.
What is it? Is it TNT?
Do you know?
Yeah, I know the plot of what we were building for. If that's what
but what is it that's exploding? Is it like a C4 charge? Is it an air charge or like a I don't know.
Like a bottle cap, like those little...
Like a little CO2 cylinder. How did they do the explosion? Because you don't want it to damage or hurt anything, So it almost seemed like just a puff of air that made, everything move, or we didn't get to see somebody had mentioned during the show that they got 2 capsules and they placed them in different spots, obviously when the spaceships blew up.
That was
had the
Caleb and Jacob
spaceships.
had the spaceships.
When they blew up,
So
they said
they did it up high.
we chose to spread out our charges, and then I was like, oh, okay.
Charges,
So
yeah.
you got to do it. You got to choose
Or whatever
what you
they called them, but
Yeah,
I think they
that
called
were-
them
yeah.
charges. Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
And so I was like, okay, well, I guess that's how it works, but they never actually explained it. So we didn't know that
It was a little
everybody had
confusing.
Yeah.
2 charges, if they did, if he was right when he spoke, or if I heard it right.
But yeah, they barely covered the challenge parameters, how that all was set up, who was setting the charges. People were asking that on social media, and then people were explaining, no, we didn't actually put them in there. I can describe it for you guys now.
Yeah, you guys, Tyler was saying they never show this on camera, but you guys actually taken off and the rules are explained in detail and you guys are allowed to ask questions and stuff. And I assume that's what happened here because you guys, or at least they didn't show it, any confusion on how it was going to physically work.
Just a little
right?
bit. Basically, like, none of us had actually had Lego explode before. That's where the confusion came in. For every challenge, they filmed the reactions of, oh, we're doing this and this and this, and so we might not necessarily know all the ins and outs of it. Then we all go aside for about a 15-minute meeting with the challenge guys, and they describe all the stuff, all the rules. They read out the rules. It's a long document each time. And
Probably all legal.
a lot of legal stuff. They actually have a legal person there to make sure everyone hears it, everyone understands, can ask all the questions we want. That way we understand what we're supposed to be doing. Even if you're tired, you still know what you're doing. As far as the explosions go, I can go into that now if you want.
Yeah.
It was, at first, I think it was 3 explosions. Eventually, I think they made it more. But I think it was at least three main explosions. I think it was 2 large, 2 small, maybe. The explosions, as far as I know, were like a small plastic explosion type stuff, like a small piece of C4, basically. You got to choose where they were placed. So you had to be kind of strategic about where each of the explosions was happening. We didn't know how powerful the explosions would be, because we knew that they were less than Season 1. That's all that we knew. Season 1's explosions were like, boom, and like baseball bat and dropping, those were like super violent. And so this is a little bit scaled down, but they have that kind of dust or water or slime element that didn't do too much on camera. Steven and I had a really fragile water tower up on the top left, which would have exploded if you had blown on it. So, and then we had the really big watermelon that was loaded with tens of thousands of pieces. And that was, if the explosions were powerful, that would look amazing. On the far right, we had a little box of fertilizer, which was what was causing the fruit to go wild. And that was kind of a medium-grade explosion. It was just a lid on a box. That stuff would explode if it was not too powerful, but fairly powerful. So thankfully, they all blew up because they made sure the explosions were powerful enough.
You had to put on this weird triangle thing, and that wasn't, at least for the audience, it wasn't really explained, and it seemed like the minifigure had to be on the point of the triangle. That was part of the rules, I guess.
Yes,
You had to protect
the
it.
theme challenge was a hero shot.
Yeah.
So this is actually copied from Australia. I think it's Season 2. So you have this triangle, and you're supposed to build the background, and most of the background is supposed to blow up while the figure remains safe. However you do that is up to you. The figure has to be on the gray base plate, which was a little annoying to me. You couldn't have anything attached to him. You couldn't have anything more than just the 2 studs in the bottom. So we actually had a little bit of a vine reaching towards him, and it wasn't touching him, but it was about an inch away.
I noticed
So
that.
ours is a little bit like protected and deflected, didn't do any good in the end. But and some teams did that. Some teams just kind of designed their explosion way farther back so that it wouldn't hopefully knock it down. I think the closest call besides ours was the ladybug, the challenge that won.
The maiden
Yep.
in her sword.
Her sword flew off.
A brick came right at the end and hit her sword, and that was awesome.
They didn't
loved
highlight it
seeing
either.
that.
It's so
Yeah.
funny. They just kind of like glossed over it.
My
too.
wife saw that the first go
Yes, she
around, and
did.
she was like, "Did her sword just fly off?" I was like, "How would you even have seen that?" And then they showed the replay in slow mo, and it was like, "Oh yeah, that is so cool."
2 other funny things that happened was in the cabaret dancer, there was a dog in the city, and it just went flying like out to space,
Oh,
and it was
man.
such a great moment. Everyone saw the dog. No one cared about the fountain blowing up. And then the
You didn't
third
even
one.
see
I
that.
didn't notice
No,
that.
I know. I missed it totally
That's-
as well. But and then the ladybug, the one that won, she had like huge volumes of the frog just literally go right past her.
I
Into the
remember
camera,
that.
and you
I
didn't
was
really see that
shocked.
because it went back and forth. It didn't finish the full explosion.
I felt like they could have made this episode twice as long.
For sure.
Oh, totally.
They really, it
All
seems
of
like
them.
Justin was saying that we didn't really catch the rules, and we didn't see enough of everybody's build.
No.
Let alone yours. I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't see
We
yours
really
till the
wanted
end.
to see yours.
Mm-hmm.
And of course we wanted to see yours because we know you. Also, it was really good. And so, like, I know I took a picture with my phone so I could go back and look at it. This is one of those episodes, like, sometimes with these new series that are coming out on Disney Plus and stuff, like, this episode will be 20 minutes, and then the next episode will be, like, an hour.
Yeah.
Because they needed an hour to fit the whole thing in. I wish they would do that with network
they're
TV.
still in a
these
box.
days.
Yeah.
They're really tight, yeah.
They needed that extra time to show
Well,
those cool
I'm
details.
sorry, I have a question. The father-son team, they were worried about that wall not falling down to show pow, but if they had control of where their charges were going to go, do you know why they didn't choose to put it behind that wall? There should be a reason.
Well, I thought they were going to put it behind the wall. And if they did, then it could have blown the POW apart.
Well, that's true.
And I didn't understand.
Were they expecting it to, like, shake it down, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know the ins and outs of that. All I know is the hinge, for some reason it didn't go down. I think the explosion was, I don't know where it was placed, but
They
somehow...
put it in the two test tubes. that
Somehow
came
it
out
didn't
like
really affect the wall behind it too much. And I'm not sure if they had attached a string or something to it, because there were Lego string pieces you could use. Something like that to help pull it or
pull it
something.
down.
But I don't know why that didn't work or why it didn't initiate. But I think the fact that they were really banking on that as a cool feature, it didn't work. That's why they
got in the
ended
bottom.
up in the
We
bottom.
thought you would be in the bottom because your figure fell down.
That's we totally would not have been surprised if we had been in the bottom two just because the figure fell down. I think that there were enough things that didn't go right on other builds that prevented us from being there.
That's what I felt.
Yeah.
That if other people's didn't mess up more, that they
Yeah.
might have.
Yeah,
cut
like
you
if
guys
that
down.
POW had come down, I don't think they would have been in the bottom two. I
Yeah.
think it would
Right.
have possibly been Randall and Sarita or me and Steven, honestly. Just because
Yeah.
they were Randall and Sarita were having a lot of trouble with that challenge, and we just didn't feel good, and the figure fell down.
Yeah.
That was like, ours was the only figure that fell down. So it's
Yeah.
interesting.
When they said they were Randall and Sarita were building a castle, it just first thought that came to my mind was Mark and Steven are gonna lose it.
We were really jealous,
They're
yes.
the castle kings.
Several teams wanted the Centaur or the Wizard more than what they had.
Or the princess. I mean, there's
Princess
lots of
is good.
opportunities for medieval castles.
No
or
trading, though,
such.
right?
No, we weren't allowed to trade our stuff. So.
To the highest bidder.
When you guys first got your element, yours was water.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any thought to, okay, how are we going to add water into this, or the glitter or the slime? In the end, you were commenting that it didn't really make that big of a difference on camera.
I don't think the water did. Some of
Okay.
them looked
Two of them
really
did,
good.
two of them didn't.
Okay.
The slime and water were kind of a jelly substance versus
Right.
like a separable substance.
Mhm.
So when the slime especially just was like a little blurb of slime just went flying off in one direction and everything else was fine. Water was pretty similar, it was just a little bit looser than the slime. And then the dust and the glitter, I think, was pretty effective. The
Those were.
dust you could see and it dissipated quickly.
Yes.
The glitter was really the best, in my
Right.
opinion.
That's why I liked Caleb and
Jacob
Jacob's
and-
build, because when it exploded, you
Just
could
glitter.
see it really well on camera.
And then Jen and Susan's The Spider and the Wizard,
Yeah.
that was really good because the glitter and the explosion worked well. So
I was thinking about how I would do a build to make it explode effectively. I'm going to tell you what I would do and tell me if I'm right or not. You instead of pressing the bricks down all the way like you normally would, you don't.
well, we didn't do that, but some teams did, and it varying degrees of success. That's a pretty valid strategy. What I ended up doing is the watermelon was a round structure, but I built it in chunks that were about that big. And so it only had one stud connection on the top. Everything else is tiled. So you have a very fragile, almost woven
Yeah.
structure, and we had to turn that upside down, fill it with bricks, and turn it back upside down. So it just barely held together, but because it did that, it exploded pretty effectively, even with only, I think, 2 charges in there.
That's
So
true.
things like that, that
Good.
really, and then like other teams where like their buildings were just like modular buildings. There's only a
Right.
stud or 2 connections. So as effectively as possible, we're making these pretty fragile to break apart.
And that's so weird about this challenge. And they mentioned it in the show that, okay, you're used to building, you're used to stacking bricks on top of bricks and whatever, but now you have to think about, okay, how do you have to make it break apart in a certain way? And they did that a little bit with the last season, but it seems like if they keep going in this vein, that it's, in some regards, it's less about how amazing you can build these structures and more about how can you adapt
to the
to
elements
these
of whatever
strange,
element comes.
yeah,
How can you
curveballs.
guess how it's going to react?
Yeah.
Right.
So
Make things
it's
functional.
yeah, it's
Right. Well,
it's,
they even gave a preview of of the next episode, which appears to be like an earthquake type thing. And so I'm sure you have to build to say you want it to last longer, I'm assuming, but then it also needs to break or something. I don't know. We'll find out.
I almost, in the preview for that, I felt like they showed us too much.
Yeah.
Like we saw, I guess there's still
lot of
11
things
teams, but we saw at least 4 or 5 buildings
Yeah.
Fell down.
fall apart.
Right.
And one of them had a Technic structure in the middle of it after the outside fell apart. So it'll be interesting to see what it's
Right.
about and what they're trying to accomplish.
It's almost like the antithesis of normal building is exploding stuff. So it was very weird to try and gauge how that worked.
Instead of your creative side, it was can you
One
conquer the elements?
of the challenges you guys have to put scuba gear on and build underwater as the bricks are floating around?
Well, is
We'll
it-
have to wait and see.
Wait, what was the saying, the slogan that Will Arnett said last week? Where this year's going to be about being bigger, and basically made it sound though like it was going to be more of what happened this episode.
I've got an odd question for you. So I saw when Will Arnett said his cell phone was in the bus, in the trailer, and he lost his cell phone. Obviously, he was just kidding, but it made me think, it's like, oh, is he allowed to have his cell phone on set? You know, of course it would be on vibrate if he did. I just can't imagine not having my cell phone on me, because what if I get an important call? Are you allowed to have your cell phone on you when you're building?
Yeah, none of the cast were allowed to have any devices of any kind while they were filming. We weren't even allowed to wear watches because they would possibly have different times or dates for filming.
Okay.
So they were last season, but they weren't this
That
season.
makes sense.
No device of any kind. The judges and Will all had their phones like normal. So
They did have.
Oh, okay. They don't have their assistants standing there.
no
velvet pillows.
But they could have if they wanted to. But no, they just had their phones in them. In fact, Amy and Jamie would take pictures of builds to send to their friends in Denmark.
Oh, really?
So yeah, they were totally allowed to do what they wanted as far as devices. And I think Will was even like he was talking to his son on FaceTime sometimes. So it was like it was just they were totally normal. But we were like, nope. If they were on their phones, they were kind of on the side or in the back. If we just didn't want to have to control everybody's phone usage, you know. So
but were you allowed to have your phone like after hours, like when you would go home and stuff? Did they completely seclude you from all outside
So
stuff?
usually, unless it was a long break, they wouldn't give us back our phones from the safe or holding wherever they were. They would just say like, okay, we're gonna go filming. Phones here. They would put our phones in a bag and put them, and then they would take them off to keep them secure. And then if we came back for like a short, like a lunch break, like 20 or 30 minutes, they wouldn't worry about giving us our devices. We just were left there to sit there and eat and talk. And then if it was a long break, like, okay, we're coming back and it's going to be 3 or 4 hours, they got to reset something on stage, then they would give us back our devices so we weren't bored out of our brains.
I have another weird question. This was a 10-hour build, right? I didn't notice on the edited version, but did they put you guys in the same costume to make it seem like it was the same day on camera? Or did you guys change your shirts and stuff for the next day?
Yeah, it was. We just had that outfit for that episode. So if
Okay.
you were filming for that episode, you were in that outfit. And they tried to keep that in the interviews as well, even though I saw some interviews from the first episode sneak into this episode. And then if for some reason we got a little sweaty or something, every time we would, if for example, it was spread over 2 days, we would then put that outfit in a bag and it would be sent up to dry clean. And then we would come back in the morning, it's ready to go. We just put it back on and go out.
Okay, so you do have the same costume for
sure,
each
yeah.
episode. Okay.
And I was kind of surprised to see a couple from episode 1. Like, I think Lauren and Brian had some comments from episode 1's interview sneak into the second interview because they were talking about them a little more. They won the challenge. So stuff like that, you'll see a little bit of crossover, but generally it's that per episode.
Speaking of the costumes, I love the outfits of the 2 girls.
The onesies. Yeah.
They were
the
wearing their
black and the-
DIY.
I just loved that
Natalie
outfit.
Michelle, yeah.
I loved it with the patches and all. I thought that was cool.
They actually wear stuff like that in real life. They
I
have a
would
cool
think
style.
so. I would think so.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of teams were kind of dressed up. Like, for example, Tim and Zach, the father and son, Zach had this kind of Hawaiian shirt, and he absolutely hated it. He wears like he looks like a lumberjack when he dresses. He's from northern Michigan, so that plaid messed too much with Caleb and Jacob's plaid look. They're the plaid boys, so no one else could wear plaid. So then other people had to change their outfit or be given outfits that were different. You know, so it's interesting.
I'm sure it was. They picked your outfits because they didn't want labels or any kind of like a Nike symbol or something.
Yeah, we couldn't
obviously.
get away with all the stuff we got on right now.
You know, that's funny you said that because I was looking at Mark and I was like, he doesn't dress like that.
I know.
Nope.
The shirt.
I don't wear
When we were
floral
watching
button downs.
Yeah, when the person, somebody when we were watching it last night was like, Mark doesn't wear. Where did he get that shirt? I'm like, I'm
Just
sure
handed to me,
it
and
was
I'm like,
just given to
okay,
him like
it
a
fits.
costume, like makeup and costume or whatever.
Yeah. Those were my jeans, though, but yeah.
You can totally pull it off, though. If you want to start.
Yeah, you could start.
You can
It
buy
gets worse.
Did,
That's all I'm gonna say.
did they let you keep it?
Yeah, I have all the outfits.
Oh,
You
wow.
do?
Of all the
Man.
episodes I was in, I have the outfits.
You should start wearing
That's
them every
great.
week.
If we do a signing, you have to wear them.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'll wear whatever. I think we're
Yeah.
doing a meet and greet here. I'll be wearing an outfit from the show. Yeah.
You should
Nice.
too. Like next week when you review episode 3, you should wear that outfit.
Sure. Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
I'm glad you said the meet and greet. We're doing a meet and greet here with
Oh,
Mark
when
and
is that?
Steven on Saturday, June 26th.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. Okay.
They'll be here from about 10 to 4-ish,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have anything to do but to talk to customers.
That's great.
So, no cost or anything.
Pictures.
Just come,
signing.
Just come say hi.
come say hi, get a free trading card.
Yep. I'll sign it.
Yeah,
I got mine already.
yeah. That's June 26th, and then
Little
there may
plug.
be another one later on.
The
while
duo.
while they're
that's
still
awesome.
on the show, we gotta.
Yes.
Yeah, boy, I really thought you guys would be in the bottom two.
I did too.
The figure falling over.
Because the rules that
The
I
rules
understood
Yeah.
said your figure has to stand up.
Yeah.
I figured it didn't matter
What-
about anything else, but the figure fell, so that was.
So what knocked
it.
the figure over? Air?
Shockwave or table moving? Because I've been sent the clip to post later. The brick is like an inch above. There's a brick that shoots across, and Steve and I were confused whether or not it actually knocked it over because it was on this big screen. It happened so fast. No bricks hit the figure. It just went. Ew. And so it's like nothing we could do about that.
What did you guys feel when you saw that? Were you thinking, oh,
we're in
like I don't know the
trouble?
order because you were saying the order they edited in isn't always the order you guys actually
It wasn't
went.
exactly the same. No.
So, but when you guys saw that, were you thinking, oh, we're toast? Or no, these others were still worse. We're safe.
We were pretty worried. We were like, oh, geez, this is not good. We were like, that's a bad sign. Most of the other figures that before us had not fallen. Like, so clearly ours was the first one to fall down, and then there was a few more to go. So we're like, ugh, I hope another one falls down or two. So we're not the only ones. But no, we were the only ones that had their figure fall down. But
So after you saw everyone's, were you guys still thinking
we were like,
we're on the chopping block? Or
we were definitely I was thinking about what I would say if I got eliminated. I'm like, I don't think I'd get eliminated, but I was like, we are not doing so hot in this challenge.
To be so early on, I bet that
It
just
would have
freaked
been
you
really
out.
bad, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and at the same time, just being on the show is a huge triumph. But we were like not feeling great about everything at that point. And there were several teams that had a really rough time this episode.
And we're going to do these through the finale.
Mm-hmm.
When Mark gets kicked, if and when Mark gets kicked off, are we still going to have
Don't
him
say
here?
when, don't say
We
when.
said that last
We
time.
said that
I
last
think-
week. No.
I think he should. I think he needs.
I
You
could speculate about stuff I wasn't in.
Yeah, okay.
I watched
All right.
last week's, and you guys said that, and you're like, no, he's going to sit in the corner and pout.
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, let's have some faith in our friend here. He cannot possibly be eliminated. He's too awesome.
We'll have to wait and see.
I know.
Speaking about being
Which is
awesome,
so frustrating.
between you and Steven, who built the fruit?
That would be Steven. Yeah,
I
he-
figured that
Yes.
because he did the Vikings, right?
Vikings.
Yeah.
And they were very similar. Was there inspiration from VeggieTales, do you think?
I think so. We didn't mention that or even like bring that up to each other, but we're like, we should have the fruit be coming alive. And it was definitely more of a, they were all really angry.
I was
So they
going to say,
weren't
they looked
VeggieTales.
really
but
angry, so that would be the
it's like VeggieTales if it was
Did
bad and
Steven-
R-rated.
Did Steven watch VeggieTales?
Yeah, we watched VeggieTales
Okay.
as kids. Yeah, so it was a part of our
Because
psyche.
those
so.
fruit are awesome.
They are.
Like, they are
fun.
really cool. So.
But you know what he did? He recreated some to show.
They're
It's
very
really
simple.
creative. They're
They're
very
just-
similar.
And you couldn't see it on the show, but they're so funny looking. Their eyes are
They're
like
adorable.
angry, and they look like fruit, you know.
Yeah.
And they're so simple.
So what
They
were-
look so simple.
Were they? It's like, what was it? A cranberry and a blueberry.
There was Steven made a taller strawberry. He made a little blueberry, and those were in a couple different colors, I think. And then you had the little cherry, which is
Oh, a
basically a
cherry.
blueberry with a little top.
I didn't know if
to
it was a cranberry.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a cherry.
Totes adorbs.
Yeah, and
Totes adorable.
that big blueberry.
Yes, I made that one. I'm a little
The
better
little
at the
orb
Lowell
type thing?
sphere. Yeah, so I whipped that one up, and Steven added some really angry eyes on that
Sure
one.
did.
And what's funny is that this is another thing that explosion effects that didn't show up. Everyone liked the fact that our thing exploded, and they're like, wow, and they're like, oh no, the fig fell, and then everyone's like, oh, and then it kept playing for a second, and then you see this huge blueberry come down with only one eye, and it just goes, and so everyone was like, oh, the
See
blueberry way.
I
Yes.
didn't see
It was
that.
like, ah! It was so funny. It was great. So little things like that we didn't have time for in the cut.
Speaking of figs falling, my figure just fell down. Right
Oh, no, there he
Look
is.
at you. You got him.
What a deadbeat.
He's not
Let
holding
me
his
stand them
vines.
back up.
He's not holding his
I thought they
You
would
see his legs.
when we saw the centaur and a couple of the others.
Yeah, this one feels like the one ours was. It's kind of loose.
So we
It's
watched
loose
it
and
as a
free.
group at the store last night, and I think Justin might have been getting ready to say this, but somebody did say that the centaur doesn't stand on his centaur body as well. The torso doesn't sit on the body.
Yeah.
And with the princess, she
She
has
also
a
is
slope
weak.
body.
It
So,
snaps very
you know,
easily.
with these legs, you've got the long studs, the leg studs, but whereas the others you don't. So that was a disadvantage. Plus, we all know some colors don't stick as well.
Yep, that kind of light medium green isn't very strong.
bright
seemingly.
green, yeah. Bright
These
green.
medium colors don't stick as well. So I wonder if that had, could have had something to do with it.
I think I was saying on a live stream last night, I was like, it could have been, wind speed, humidity. We don't know why it fell over, but, it did. There was kind of a calculated difference between some of the figures. And, like, some of the figures, like the Rocket Boy, he had little short legs, but he had this huge headgear.
Right.
So he's about the same size, even if...
It would make him top
It
heavy,
was-
I
yeah.
feel
But
like.
he's got the headgear keeping him together.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a little...
Yeah, and then like the wizard had a slope too. So it's like things that were like different, but still could be better or
Yeah.
worse. So
That's the difference between regular builders and Lego masters. They have to account for all,
Yeah.
like, oh, this is old reddish brown. I have to know the
Yeah,
difference.
it'll break. Yeah, well, I guess to make it...
Old reddish brown.
Yeah,
early
Yeah,
reddish
old
brown.
Early, yeah, early.
early
Not
reddish
the
brown's
current.
gonna shatter right away,
Yeah,
guys.
Yeah, it's gonna
I have to
break.
account for that when they explode.
You're right. Yeah, I guess if it was to be totally fair, then everyone should have been given the same figure with the same thing, and then everybody
Yeah.
had to show. their
A
skill.
monogender figure with
Yeah.
white, or not even
Just
white.
everyone gets
yeah.
a blank
All the
white
same.
a
figure.
gray minifigure, solid gray, nothing.
And you have to decorate it.
When that team was eliminated, what was the general feeling?
They look
The
so
one part of
sad.
Lego Masters that isn't quite honest is the reactions from everyone else when something happens. They always kind of edit in what they need for drama. So every time Zach and Wayne do anything, me and Steven are like, they have
Yeah.
the golden brick.
Yes,
we want to get them. And
that is how they did it last
We were pretty
night.
chill with Zach and Wayne were friends of ours. We were not as aggressive as they present that. But
Last night they did make.
and then
you have
like
faith.
when Jack and Dawn, when both teams went up, everyone was like really upset, like sad, because this is actually the first time someone's going to get eliminated, and we had been together for quite a while filming, so everyone was really sad. You saw Caleb tearing up. He was literally bawling by the time everyone had gotten back under risers and Jack and Dawn had left. Like, people were crying. They were so sad, and that was real.
Oh, I mean, I
It's
guess
sad.
if you're put through the ringer with a bunch of strangers, they aren't strangers at the end because
Yeah.
Yep.
you all have to go through the same pain and whatever.
I think I said on the first time we did this, it's like we really, because we were only interacting with each other and a handful of crew and producers, you really got
You only had
to
each
know each
other.
other, really
Yeah.
got to be friends really quickly, and it's very sad when it's like that's the nature of the competition. It's an elimination show, so yeah. It's only going to keep happening.
So, predictions for next episode. I think Chris and I were right that the bikers were going to be eliminated,
You are.
number one.
Also, I think I made the prediction that the Utah moms were going to make a comeback,
Yes, you did.
which
Joe,
theirs was very good.
Did good.
Yeah. The next challenge looks like it's going to be, like you said, they showed 4 or 5 buildings
Yeah.
collapsing.
Down.
So, is it how long it lasts? Does it need to transform?
Does it
that
have
could
to?
be.
Does it
Maybe
even
it
have
has
to
to-
look good?
Yeah.
You
Does it
know?
even have to look
you know?
good? That's the
I mean,
question.
is it more function? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously
Right.
the figure didn't have to stand up like they said.
Yeah, obviously not. Yeah.
He's going to rub that in forever. So, what are your guys' predictions? Don't look at Mark's face. What are your predictions for the next team
To go?
to go? Who's going to have trouble with that one?
Here's my prediction. The hip-hop artists. They have had 2 builds where they've been heavily criticized by the judges.
Wait,
2 weeks in a
Were they
row.
criticized last week? I thought that the judges
Yeah,
liked
yeah.
The parade, I
Actually,
thought
no.
they really
Jamie,
liked the parade.
Jamie said that
Oh,
it
'cause
was
you couldn't
too
see the movement 'cause it was
flat,
flat.
and you
Okay.
couldn't
Oh.
see the record, which was a little harsh in my opinion. But
Yeah.
it was a little minifigure heavy. But then, I mean, if you tilt the record up, it's just record players don't tilt up. Record players are
Right.
flat. So I thought it was fun. But they did have a lot.
I felt like they were
it
way
was
more confident
not as
last
big
week.
and not as many, a little too many figures.
Yeah.
And then last night they had trouble with a building. you know, in their castle.
They really struggled.
And I think they restarted. But with that said, if it's you got to build a big tower, and I'm assuming so it shakes, right? I'm assuming whoever's fall off. There's a lot of objectivity in it though as well, because obviously, like we were talking about, they don't always go by the rules. The rules have a play in it.
Yes.
Right. So
I guess they can fall back on the rules if they don't know what to do.
it does have to be looks, and it's got to be functionality.
Yeah.
Because that's what they say every time.
Yeah.
For
and
sure.
They
and there's a story maybe.
And they're being ticketed as Lego hip hop artists, and that they're artists. And if you look at what they have done in the past, it's artistic stuff that's possibly two-dimensional and not necessarily the big functional
So you think
stuff.
the challenge is against
I
their...
think they're going to be in the bottom 2 and get kicked off, and then the other one who's going to be in the bottom 2 is going to be somebody, and they're not going to get kicked off, but it's going to be somebody whose function didn't work the way it was supposed to work.
Pretty specific prediction. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why I get the feeling Utah Moms.
Oh, do
that's-
you?
yeah,
I didn't think
I'm
about
thinking
them.
Utah Moms.
Didn't think about that.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I'm
thinking the husband and wife.
The
They
husband
had
one.
a,
Oh, that's right. They didn't.
they
yeah.
had
True.
they had a good build. They had a great build, I thought, last night. But
that first week messed them up.
Something tells me that they're going to be in the bottom 2 and they don't get kicked off. Where they do get kicked off and the hip-hop artists stay. But something tells me they have a bad time because they
with
can...
this one.
Because, and here's my reasoning for that, is the father-son were just in the bottom 2, and for good entertainment, I don't think they'd...
Oh, you don't think
I don't think
they'd
they'd put
them
him in the
again?
bottom 2 again. I think they'd wait and do it the
that
next
could be
episode.
And I was thinking that too. I think you're right. Unless it's like so obvious they can't explain around it, they do try to make not the same people every time
True,
in the bottom
that
2.
is true.
And
That is
same thing for the top 2, I would say, just for entertainment value.
You don't want it to be predictable.
Yes.
You know, that's
Yeah.
not good.
True.
TV,
But
so.
unless they just can't, like, unless their bill just fails and you can't explain around
Or
it.
maybe Zach and Wayne, and they have to use their golden brick. You don't know.
Honestly, I thought they were going to get in that bottom 2 because
did,
of the
I did
rules,
too.
but
We're all
I was actually
scared.
scared.
We were.
I
we
really
were like,
was.
I was
well, no,
too.
it was like a given. We were all like, well, of course we're in the bottom 2. Their figure fell down. That was
Yeah.
the rule. And then when they weren't, we were like, whoa, wow, cool.
It's because their build exploded.
was better. Yeah.
I think they're going to do... Close your eyes. Don't look at me. I think they're going to do well simply because they have experience.
Markins?
Yes.
Well, they are good at building buildings.
Huge things. They're used to building gigantic
We'll give
things.
you
And
the credit.
maybe there's some part of the challenge that we don't know about that's going to throw a monkey wrench in that, but they are used, and like you said, the hip hop artists build smaller things and
True,
sometimes
maybe they're
not
not used to the big,
three-dimensional,
big stuff.
whereas they're used to building giant things. I think they're going to do well on this one, and they may not be in the top 2, but I think they're going to be safe.
What about, you
for
mentioned you saw one of the builds was full of Technic, but the stuff fell off of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So who would be more likely to build a Technic structure inside?
The scientists, the two
You
goofy
know,
scientists.
Yeah,
The engineers?
Moda,
The
that's
engineers?
right. Yeah.
Well, no, you're right. That's true. Because we saw that fall, so we don't know if
Yeah.
that's a good thing that it fell or not, but we did see that it was Technic.
I think just about any of them could, and probably more than one team will. But what was interesting, if you remember back to season 1, the Technic Bridge did not win the bridge
You're
challenge.
right. You're
Correct.
right.
That
Yep.
was
One.
Several people did technically.
Aaron and
Tyler-
Christian had a very technical.
theirs was the
That
Technic
was the
Bridge.
Technic.
Yeah, and I thought
Tyler and Amy didn't win,
I
but theirs
thought-
was the strongest, in my
yeah,
opinion.
Tyler and Amy's was definitely the strongest, I
Right.
thought, and it was not Technic.
Right. And
So-
they both, Boone and Mark and Tyler and Amy, both got to 1,000 pounds. And I felt like Tyler and Amy should have won that because theirs didn't even crack.
Yeah.
And Boone and Mark's showed a
Did start to
breakage
crack,
on the side. I felt like. And then I think at that point it just went to which one looked prettier.
Yep, that's kind of like when your minifigure falls over. They might not end up in the bottom 2 because the build was all right.
Your build was good.
Yeah.
I noticed on the commercial they showed you guys and I think the twins building a very similar structure, and there was something like, "Oh, you're copying us," and you guys said, "I thought you were copying
Yeah.
me."
Wait, is
Good.
that for this coming
I
episode?
know you can't.
Good.
I know you can't talk about it. It doesn't seem like it. Seems like that's
okay.
later
I didn't
because
see
it looked
That
like
was in the first episode like the
Oh,
intro.
you were talking about the
Yeah.
whole
yeah.
season, maybe?
So I know you can't tell us what it is. So and actually, I'm putting it all together. We know he survives this one because this is a building that shakes, and that other thing was obviously like hanging from something in that preview. Do you remember? It's like it looks like a drill what they're building.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like a.
You're
and-
right. They were both
that's-
hanging some.
So we know the
Yeah.
twins and them at least make it past this next one.
Oh man, I don't like spoilers.
So I'm Sherlock Holmes. I'm Sherlock Holmes. That's all I said.
Mark,
But I
see?
wanted to ask you. I know you can't tell us about the challenge or anything, but you said it was basically good natured the whole time, and no one like said, "Hey, you're copying us." But in that one, they definitely showed you guys kind of
Competing.
lightly jabbing at each other. Can you tell us anything? Like, was that set up? Did you guys really, or did you just happen to build the same thing for that challenge?
Yeah, so throughout my time on the competition, Steven and I were always really avoiding having something that was too similar to something that someone else is building. Whether that means we use different color, we do a different plan, like doing a sea serpent versus just a typical dragon. Things like that we would definitely do to avoid. However, I think the fact that several teams wanted to do like a big reptile for their first build suggests there's going to be some overlap as far as creativity and ideas. You'll probably see that coming up based on that little clip there. I can't really say too much about it without spoiling it. But
I can't even imagine what that
because
is.
you see me in it, I'll tell you more once that
Yeah,
does
okay.
appear.
They did do that in season 1 a lot.
Yes.
Where they said,
Said too
"Oh, they're
much?
they're building the same thing as us."
Oh, that's right.
And they
I remember the baby was a big thing.
Yeah.
Tyler and
Yeah.
Amy, yeah, they had a couple of things copy them.
And it was. I'm surprised they didn't do that the first episode with the dragons, because you guys did a sea serpent, which is kind of like a dragon, but there's enough going on in the first episode. They didn't need to do
Didn't
that.
have time for it, no.
I was actually thinking I was thinking about Mark and Steven and how nice guys they are, and I see them help people building all the time.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, especially Steven, did he go help anybody with their models or show them how to do something at some point in time?
Right.
Were you
so
allowed to do that?
So for the 2 episodes that we've seen, Steve and I were really a little too focused to give anyone else any pointers or tips. I think only Moto has like a distinct memory of I think he gave just a little bit of aesthetic advice to Tim and Zach. No, not Tim, Zach and Wayne. But so Zach and Wayne got a little pointer from Moto. He actually even dropped a handful of pieces in the corner of their table and said, "These might be useful." And they were
Really?
like, "Ooh." So they put them on there, and they really enjoyed it, and they were really appreciative to
Wow.
Moto. So, but they
know
didn't
that.
cover things like that. They actually
No.
they even were like, "Do not do it unless there's several cameras watching. Do not even interact with the other teams unless you know you're being watched, just so we can get it." So,
Really? Okay.
but that being said, when I was walking by people's tables getting bricks, it's like, "Looks great, awesome, keep it up." You know, I mean, just like little things like that, and they were like, "Thanks." Even if
Well,
we
they
weren't.
showed last night. Zach was building, and he said, "Well, I build."
Yeah.
Zach's gonna go,
Check out the other competition.
or
Now-
Wayne's gonna go check out the other.
Now, and they made it seem like they were like
Trying
and
to
strategically
copy?
look at everyone's stuff, but in reality, Wayne just really wanted to see what was going on. He loved it, and they kind of asked him like, "Were you trying to spy on them?" And they're like,
That's what it kind of looked like last
They
night.
they
a little
weren't.
bit.
They actually prompted throughout each episode that I was in. They had a couple of teams, most of them, go out and look at 2 other tables. They did that in the first episode, they did it in the second episode. So we go over and say, "Wow, I really like what you're doing," or "I like this," and we didn't have much negative to say because we were really enjoying each other's builds. It gave teams a little break, a little opportunity to go look at something on the opposite side of the room, for example.
When they would do that, like
But they didn't
make,
show anything of that from the
Okay.
cut. So yeah,
when
Yeah, it
they
looks
would
like-
make you or prompt you to go talk to someone and things, did the clock stop?
no.
No.
So
Okay.
we
It was on
didn't
your
spend
time.
too long doing that
Yeah.
because of that reason. But it was only like a minute or 2 at each table. So yeah. You might see more of that later as the show
Okay.
progresses.
Yeah, as they get more time. I listened to our podcast again last time, but we were talking about the bricks, 5 million bricks, but a huge portion of that was used. I guess it got easier as there's less teams because you got 1 less team, 2 less, 3 less actually using the bricks. So
In theory, the more people eliminated, the more pieces
Yeah.
to share between teams.
and
so, yeah.
and man, the next challenge, whatever it is, that building thing, looks like it's gonna use a lot of pieces.
This gets me motivated to do stuff like this just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were talking about earlier, we for 4th of July we want to get some fireworks.
Yeah.
Oh,
In
jeez.
Georgia here, they're totally legal, and we want to have some challenges where we could like maybe everybody gets a smoke bomb, and you got to build a capsule for it out of Legos, so the smoke doesn't escape or something. And then
wow.
send minifigures up on
jeez.
bottle rockets and see who's can go the furthest.
And then I'll be the one to call 911. 'cause-
And we've just thought about some really fun. And then it reminds me when I was a kid. I grew up on a farm, and we had a big sand pile. We used it for all kinds of stuff around the farm, but we used to build forts in there, set up our plastic soldiers, and then blow everything up. And it's exactly what they did last night.
Yeah.
We used to use, build these big sand castles and just blow them to pieces with M80s. And the soldiers and everything. And it's like, it's the exact same thing they were doing last night.
It's just big kids still playing. Well, I wish you well. I hope we get to see you again.
Well, you
in
have to.
episodes.
At least one more episode,
we
right?
know.
We have to.
Any closing remarks or anything you want to tease for next episode?
The bricks will fall where they may. I mean,
Nice.
good.
Nice.
Or the minifigures, right?
True.
He's gonna,
Did we
he
make
has
a
nightmares
prediction about
that.
who we think's going to win? We made a prediction about
Oh,
who we
no,
think's
we
going to
didn't.
lose.
you guys can make some predictions, yeah.
Prediction on who would get.
I mean, my first choice
The
would be
top.
Mark and Steven just because they're my favorites.
We didn't make predictions last week. Well, the only prediction I didn't, it wasn't a prediction. I thought the teacher and the DJ, their model should have gotten in the top 3.
Okay.
I think they should have had a top 3 instead of a top 2. 'Cause
Yes.
I really liked their pizza and hot dog build.
Yeah.
Everybody's builds last night were really
Yeah.
good. Even the couple that got kicked off,
Yeah,
their
they
build
still did
looked
good.
fantastic. I mean,
Nice,
I would have made it taller so that it
Yeah.
there's more to explode. But
I think it's hard to make a prediction without knowing all the rules.
Well, that's true.
That'd be really hard. But
it could be a technicality that
yeah,
gets like
like a minifig.
like a
Yeah.
like a minifigure fall.
It's
He's
okay,
gonna have
Mark.
nightmares.
Here's my prediction. They got away with it this time.
Yeah.
They don't get away with it next time.
Okay. Thank you everyone for showing up today, waking up, putting your clothes on, and walking over
Yes,
here.
Thank you for that.
As always, please subscribe if you're not subscribed already. We are available as a full podcast. You guys know this on all your typical podcast.
The feeds.
The feeds. Feed it. Feed
Streaming.
the streams.
The streams.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get in the streams.
The interwebs.
Swim in the stream
The interweb.
of interwebs. We will see you guys very soon. Let us know, did you have any questions about this episode? Were you confused on the rules? What do you think's going to happen next episode? Thank you so much.
So yo.
Like, comment, subscribe.